I would like to welcome you. We are doing a recorded grand Zoom call. We're calling it a summer series, and we're doing it to promote the GHS and to provide programming for our members. And we're doing it to promote the Golf Heritage Society National Meeting, which will occur in the greater Pittsburgh area in late September and early October. On September 30th, we'll play golf twice at a country club on the 29th of September at Totter Ridge. And it's a great little course. And people will play hickories. They'll play classic clubs and they'll play moderns. We call that concept heritage golf. And it's a very exciting concept because people will say, I want to come out and see what you're doing, but I don't feel comfortable to play hickory clubs, but I want to see and learn about it. So this is a great way for us to encourage people to learn about all the eras of golf and the equipment that was played, and hang out with people who have that type of equipment and who can teach you a lot. So we have two opportunities for golf at the convention. The 29th of September will be at Totter Ridge. And on September 30th, we will have our formal get-together where we will have our competition for the Hickory Championship. And we're going to create another division for the Classics, honoring the career and memory of Arnold Palmer and his era with Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player and several other folks. So that is going to be an exciting time. After that golf outing, we have made special arrangements to stay at Latrobe Country Club in their grand ballroom and bring together friends of Arnold Palmer, people who have known him through his life and have played golf with him and been members of the community of Latrobe and or the country club itself. And we call those folks Arnie's Amigos. I call them the Latrobe hosts. They're going to be very helpful to be our host and help me be a host for the convention. In any case, we can talk a little bit more about the convention at halftime, but for sure the two golf dates tie us to Arnold Palmer, particularly when you know he grew up there. Arnold Palmer's dad, Deacon Palmer, was a groundskeeper and head professional. Taught Arnold Palmer how to play golf and encouraged him in his career. So there's a lot of history that people who come to the convention and have the opportunity to come to Latrobe, whether they play modern clubs, classic clubs, or their hickory clubs, for fun or for competition, they're going to have a good time. So we're very excited about all of that. So tonight, you've come on because you want to hear more and see more about Arnold Palmer and certain collectibles. And what we've decided to do is reach out to one individual who has had a long-standing interest in Arnold Palmer and has made Arnold Palmer one of his collecting interests. That individual is Keith Campbell. Keith is a longtime member of the Golf Collector Society and now the Golf Heritage Society. In a minute, he's going to tell us about his own bio relative to the golf collecting and golf heritage. And then we'll get into the items that he has pulled out from his home collection. So if you think about everything that's in his home and what he might bring to Pittsburgh, to Monroeville, to the Doubletree Hotel, can't possibly bring it all. If he shows you around the room, as he did for me a couple weeks ago, it's a massive collection. So what we've done tonight is ask Keith to give some thought to telling a story, pulling out some pieces that matter to him, and we will enjoy his presentation about those items. So I think it's a really it's the right time now to turn over the program to Mr. Keith Campbell. Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll ask you a bunch of questions to keep us moving.
Sounds great, Ern. I appreciate the opportunity to invite some folks into our home. My wife, Burl, is handling the camera phone, and I appreciate her help. I wouldn't be able to do it without her. None of this, actually. I'm just real honored to be here, sharing some of my most precious and prized pieces that I've been gathering for 40 plus years almost, it seems. So.
Very good. So Keith, tell us a little bit about the Golf Collectors Society, how you got involved, and how you started to find Arnold Palmer and Arnold Palmer memorabilia, please.
Great. Yeah, I first became aware of Arnold Palmer, obviously, when I was a very young man, having some interest in golf, not real knowledgeable, but following him on television. Later in life, when I was a teenager and early 20s, I began to, even though I had relatively long hair and I knew Mr. Palmer's disdain for long hair, I would always pull my hair back. And I was from the Pinehurst area, a small town about 20 miles away, and first started going up to Pinehurst and the Old World Golf Hall of Fame, and following Mr. Palmer whenever he would come up there to tournaments, and Sageville Country Club in Greensboro. But my first involvement with the Golf Collectors Society, back in the old days, we used to get the Sunday newspaper, and I would go through one ads every Sunday looking for yard sales and anybody selling golf stuff. And I happened to see a very small little article in the one ad saying golf yard sale. And I thought, that's interesting. And I was on my way to play golf, and I happened to call that number. It was at Lake Norman, North Carolina, not far from here. And I called the guy, and it happened to be Jim Dreyer, a former Golf Collector Society president, of course. I didn't know that at the time. And I said, yeah, I saw your ad in the one ads, and it said you're having a golf yard sale. He goes, are you looking for junk, or are you looking for good stuff? And he didn't say junk. And I said, well, I'm looking for good stuff. He goes, well, don't come to the yard sale. Stop by after you play golf. I'll show you around. Unbelievably, he invited me, him and Judy, God bless her, invited me into his house and took me upstairs. And for 3 or 4 hours, I took a tour, spent a lot of money, bought a lot of stuff. He gave me a little flyer, and I ended up signing up. And I've been a member ever since, and I've loved every moment of it. So, and of course, collecting Arnold Palmer stuff has been a constant with me for decades now. And that's how it kind of all started for me.
Keith, thanks for that. Those past presidents, they have a way of never stop recruiting, Jim Nick and Bob Geddes on the line. They're going to buy you a cup of coffee, but you're going to sign up for a 5-year and a sponsorship. You can believe that.
Sounds good.
That's great. So Keith, when we did the Zoom 2 weeks ago, we were going to do a 5-minute practice. It turned into 25 minutes, and it was great fun. You wandered around the bathroom first, and then out and around. And there were so many things that you could talk about for 10 hours. So we decided to ask you to pull out a few things and tell us some stories special to you. And they're Arnold Palmer collectibles. So why don't you get started and point out a few things and tell us what it is and why it's important.
Okay, thanks. I just, as you said, it's very difficult in our house. And like I said, my wife is an angel. She lets me put my stuff everywhere, as you mentioned, including the bathroom. That's not a story I talk about a lot, but there it is. I pulled out a few things on the table here, and there's a lot more in my golf room. There's more in my display case over here, but I just thought I'd pick out older Arnie's Army pins, and I've got 3 here on the table here. There's a green one. There's a small one that says Arnold's Army, and there's a vintage one there. I don't. I'm sure a lot of the members listening tonight know Wayne Aaron from Atlanta. We were at the Mid Pine show many years ago, and I was wearing an Arnie's Army pin. And he goes, what do you want for your pin? I said, it's not for sale. He said, of course it's for sale, Keith. I said, no, it isn't. It's very rare. It's very old. He goes, well, what if I offered you several $100s for it? I went, okay, offer. And he made the offer. And my mouth dropped open and I said, okay, sure. And he pulled out the money and laid it on the table. And of course, I had to take my pen off and I was crushed. Every time I see Wayne at a show, a meeting, whatever, he'll go, I'm looking for a pen. Do you have one? So it really, really rubs me the wrong way. So thanks, Wayne. As I do with Arnold Palmer golf balls, every time I saw Mr. Palmer, I would have him sign a ball for me. He didn't really like signing balls that much, but, for some people, he would do it if he had the time. And a lot of these I've gotten from other people that I know. Some of them he signed for me. This particular ball here, I would like to talk a little bit about that for a second. I got a friend that lives in Charlotte who's retired now, but it used to be in the golf business. And he was at the PGA merchandise show in Orlando, I think, many years ago, back when the Skins game was going on, I think in the 80s. And he looked up and he told his partner in the booth the guy said, look, here comes Arnold Palmer. And my friend goes, well, give me a golf ball, quick. Luckily, they had some Palmer golf balls in his booth. And Mr. Palmer walked up by himself and he gave him this ball to sign. And of course, I was lucky enough to get that from him a couple years ago. This is a great little woodcut of Mr. Palmer's logo and name. I actually got from a friend of mine that did a lot of charity events down at Bay Hill with Mr. Palmer. And I have this one left. I had one more, but that one's long gone. Hold ball's really good. This is a collectible that a lot of people in the society probably, or the society are familiar with, Tom Clark gnomes. I used to have every single one of the Tom Clark golf gnomes. I've gotten rid of all of those except this one. And this one's called Arnold. Took me a long time to find this one. He made this specifically for Arnold Palmer. And I actually called Tom Clark at his studio in Davidson, North Carolina, before he passed away. And I said, listen, I have been looking and looking for years for a Tom Clark Arnold Palmer gnome. Do you have one? He goes, no, I don't. He said, maybe you ought to contact Arnold Palmer and ask him for his. So, well, luckily I was able to find one at an mall many years ago. This is a piece that Vern I pulled out for mainly to show for the interest of where we're headed in a few months. Maybe hard to see. Let me show this if I could. This is a piece I picked up at the Dayton show several years ago. Kind of hard for me to see it.
I know.
There. Up in my neck of the woods, Wake Forest, 2003. Not real old, but that's when they did his. They honored him for that day. I just thought it was a neat little thing, an old timey fan that he graciously signed, which I was really thrilled about that. It's very fragile. I just never seen another one like it before. Go to this piece. This is another thing that means a great deal to me. Of course, everybody's familiar with the 1995 Open, famous picture of Mr. Palmer on the bridge. And of course, these press badges or press armbands were given out to the press. I was able to obtain a large collection of Furman Bisher from the Atlanta Constitution newspaper, a lot of his estate. And these were some of the ones in his estate, and was very lucky to get Mr. Palmer's signature on this as well. So this is means a great deal to me. One other thing I'll show. This is in kind of keeping with the Arnie's Army buttons and pinbacks. This is an Arnie's Army paper visor from the early 60s, and kind of what new old stock, I guess you'd say, never been used. I was pretty happy to get a hold of this as well. Put this one down here. Speaking of new old stock, I want to share a couple of items. For those of you that are big Arnold Palmer fans like me, if you remember several years ago, Mr. Palmer came out with the memorabilia book, right, of a lot of reproduction things that he had in there, and some of the history of his life and some of the things that he has up in his barn and up in Latrobe, in fact. But this was one of the things that was in the book. That was one of the reproductions, the exact reproduction, but in the book, it actually says reproduction. This, however, is new old stock, and it's still on the card. And I'm sure most people are familiar with this that have anything having to do with golf. So I thought that was pretty nice, pretty neat thing to have, especially since it's in the book. And speaking of the book, there's another item that's in the book, and it's this. This meant a great deal to Mr. Palmer because it was back when he was with Wilson Sporting Goods, and he actually included a reproduction of this card in that memorabilia book. And in fact, some of those reproduction cards have shown up at different places that were signed by Mr. Palmer, but they're clearly reproductions. This, if you can tell, there's a vintage signature in there. In fact, it even has a hole in the top of the card where somebody used a thumbtack to put it on the wall. But this is the original card. original card that goes that came out back when he was with Wilson Sporting Goods. So yeah, I just thought this was really, really neat. And I do want to have my wife kind of follow me over here to this. For those of you that watched the St. Andrews documentary on the Golf Channel about a week ago, it was wonderful, actually. And when I was watching that, one of the segments about 30, 40 minutes into the show, the documentary showed the inside of the caddy shack, and they were assigning caddies. And I noticed this photograph blown up behind the desk. As you can see, it's Arnold Palmer and his caddy, Tip Anderson, in one of the first opens that Mr. Palmer played in. And for years, I wanted to get this original wire photo, and this photo came from the UK. It's a wire photo from the UK. And for years, I kept meaning to get Mr. Palmer's signature on this, but I was never able to do it. And luckily, I got contacted by a gentleman from the UK and said that he had not only Mr. Palmer's signature, but Tip Anderson's signature. And he mailed me the program, and it includes Tip Anderson, of course, and Arnold Palmer's signature. And I had it matted and framed, and it hangs in my golf room. So I'm pretty happy about that one.
So what we thought we would do, Keith, is give you a second to catch your breath. And since it's a relatively manageable crowd of about 15, I thought it would be interesting and fair to see if someone wanted to jump in with one of their collectibles if they have it on hand. Is anybody prepared to do that and give Keith a breather here?
Bert, I'd be happy to if someone is not ready to.
Welcome. Thanks. Not everybody knows who you are. So each time we're going to ask you to introduce yourself and where you're from, and if you know how long you're a member, and that sort of thing, and then have at it.
Okay. My name is Eric Lucy. I'm from Dubuque, Iowa, right where Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin intersect on the Mississippi River. And I think I joined the society, I want to say around 2011. And I primarily focused almost 100% on Masters or Augusta National memorabilia. And I have my cornerstone of my collection is I have all the badges going back to 1934. And I took a chance of, I thought, you know, I wonder if I could get any of these signed. So I took a chance and got a hold of Arnold Palmer's office and talked to the gal there. And she said, sure, go ahead and send them in. And so, so he was kind enough to sign, I don't know if you can see these or not, but all four of the badges from the year he won, 58 and 60, and then of course 62 and 64. And that got me started on getting other players to sign the badges that of the years that they won as well. So that that's Arnold Palmer he's always a beloved gentleman. And of course, I thought tonight I would have a Kettle One in his honor while we were, gathering together. And my family's all out of town. I've got the place to myself, so I'm not driving anywhere. So, but no, he's obviously a great gentleman and someone who's near and dear to everybody's hearts, even those of us who have never actually physically met him. or had an opportunity to visit with him, we all feel like we actually know him. He was always that kind of spirit, and he helped me, me putting that trust, because I was a little nervous about sending those badges, those tickets out, and wondering, okay, are they going to come back? But that was a really great start, and I've had him also autograph some other items. I won't take you out. I've got one with the big three, all in their green jackets, and he signed that about a year before he passed away. And I was really fortunate to have been able to get that before, sadly, he had left us.
Mr. Lucy, that's good stuff, and we appreciate you sharing that. You bring up two extremely important points. Arnold Palmer, the gentleman and willing to be the friend of all of us and welcome us to be comfortable around him. And that carried over. Point two, his staff. Doc Giffen and Debbie, who answered the phone and greeted people. Being in Region 2 and the region director, we had the opportunity to visit several times. And rather than me tell the story, if Bob Geddes is available, Bob, would you want to say anything about your visits to Arnold Palmer's office?
Yeah, that's fine, Bern. I hope you can hear me. I'm in transit right now, but some of the fond memories that I have were certainly those visits to Latrobe and to see Arnold's collection. I talked to my brother, Big Mike, earlier today, and he actually sent me a photo of a hat that he had signed at the father-son event, they called it, I believe, in Orlando. He was there for a convention, and it was along with the Bay Hill father-son event with Mr. Palmer was one of the participants. And I guess he played with his grandson that year. And at the end of his round, he was, talking to the crowd. And Mike said that, and Mike's a big guy. He said the crowd was really a large crowd. And some people in the front were asking for autographs. But then Mr. Palmer was going to move on. And of course, Mike's a pretty imposing guy, and he's not shy. He reached up, he held the hat, and he said, Mr. Palmer, he said, I just had a chance to visit your site in Latrobe. And Arnold sort of parted the crowd, came over to my brother and signed his hat. So my brother was thrilled about that, of course. And it's probably one of his favorite collectibles.
That's great.
Great story. Great story. So I think what we'll do is if there's another person out there that wants to show and tell, that'll be great. Then we're going to get back to Keith Campbell and his collectibles.
Bern, I can go.
Bern, this is John Rasmussen.
John, you have the floor, and then we'll do Jim Jesselnick, and then we'll go back to Keith.
Okay, real briefly, I'm one of the Arnie amigos, and I was lucky enough over the decades to get to know Arnie quite well and just consider him a friend and a mentor and inspiration to me. And I've been involved collecting a few years back, well, years ago, but mostly things that sort of were personal that from being in contact with them. But one thing I want to share with you, back around 1998, I started to get good enough that I was in the championship flight at Latrobe Country Club. And my favorite clubs at that time were the Palmer Persimmon clubs, densitized persimmon. And I'm not sure if you can see this. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm. Again.
This was the Palmer 5-wood, my favorite club. I loved it. And around 1997, I got a little crack in it. I was hoping to get it fixed. And they had stopped making persimmon clubs. So Randy Bissey, the pro at Latrobe Country Club, contacted the factory. And they weren't making them any longer. So when they made this 5-wood for me, it was the last one ever made in the Palmer factory. I'm going to try to show it. I'm not that good with these phones, but Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This was the last one made. When I finally stopped using them and went a little more conventional, I had it refinished and gripped. I'm going to try to show the signature. Arnold signed it for me. Can you sort of see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's legible, even though it's not really something for sale or a real collectible in a sense of a picture, but it'll always be special to me, that Arnold Palmer Club. And when people come to the convention and the retro outing, a lot of our Arnie amigos and people that knew Jim or knew Arnie, like Jim Rakowski Sr., Bill Hillgrove, and special guests, they'll share stories, and hopefully GSH members are going to have their inspirational stories they can share. So hopefully I'll see you all at the convention.
Thank you.
Very good. Jim, you're next up.
So I brought a couple of things. It's probably hard to see. This is a really neat badge. It has a flip top. I'm a member of Arnie's Army. I paid way too much to Bob Geddes to get it, but it was so cute, I just had to have it. And another thing that I brought, this is a camo, oversized head cover driver that will be on my table when we come to Latrobe for the show. And my story is that I actually went to high school in Latrobe. And one day, this was in 1963, 64, Arnie came over and gave us an exhibition. And I was just amazed. He would stand in the upper tier at St. Vincent College, hit a ball down to his caddy, almost hit his caddy every single time. And at the end of his little exhibition, all I had was a little slip of paper, and I had him autograph it, and I stuck it in my wallet. Several years later, we were at a state park. It was very hot. I decided to jump in the water, forgetting that my wallet was in my back pocket.
Oh,
that
no.
pretty well ruined the signature. And fortunately, that was right about when eBay came into vogue. And I think I immediately bought 5 signed things on eBay, not realizing that there were all kind of ones that you could pick up. Arnie was my personal hero, one of my personal heroes, and I'm thrilled to be coming to the meeting and to Latrobe Country Club.
Jim, those are good comments and great stories, personal stories. And it leads me to an announcement of something that we're going to do at the convention. We're not sure exactly how we're setting it up, but we intend to do 2 things, both centered around Arnold Palmer. One, we will have several of our key collectors with an Arnold Palmer theme bring some of those personal, important, eye-catching things. And when we announce to the Western Pennsylvania, tri-state area, greater Pittsburgh areas, these folks will come out and see your collectibles. So we are organizing that and thinking about working with the hotel, how we can do that and protect the collectibles. We might do it in the trade show room. We might do it for full 3 days outside and have a special section. We're working on that. And the other thing is what Jim just said. He told a personal story, a vignette, an interesting interaction with one Arnold Palmer. And the themes keep coming through. His willingness to be a gentleman and be a friend and be a role model. So the other thing we're going to do is have a camera so we can videotape or audio tape, whatever you want to do, and tell a couple of those stories. And one of our good friends, Chris Rodell, who wrote the book, Arnold Palmer Homespun Stories, and I just happen to have a copy of it here around me. Chris has an interest in writing a second book, when he does that, his first book really was personal interaction with Arnold Palmer and the Latrobe folks who knew Arnold Palmer and spent time with Arnold Palmer, hence the name Homespun Stories. And that's terrific. When I sat down with Chris, met him for the first time, I asked him, about writing that book. And long story short, he and I agreed that there were so many people who have had wonderful interactions with Arnold Palmer that would like to share those stories. And Chris may make his second book centered around our stories. So he will be there at the hotel for one afternoon session, and we will hear from Chris, but we will also start collecting some of your stories that we can share with the world, maybe through Chris or maybe through our website, as they will be on record and recorded for our GHS members to access. So these are exciting things that we're planning to do around the convention. There's so many wonderful opportunities, and the concept of Arnold Palmer, the gentleman, the successful golfer, the philanthropist, and the community participant are all reflected in the new building for the first tee of Pittsburgh, which is named the Arnold Palmer Learning Center. And if you have time, you'll go and visit. Maybe we'll take a tour together. And the atrium is dedicated to Arnold Palmer and his success in those four areas that I just mentioned. Okay, so much for hearing from me. It's time to get back to one Mr. Keith Campbell. And Keith, this time around, you told some of those stories that I know are personal, and that's great. And I know you have a personal vignette to close it out, but show us some more stuff. Show us some of your favorites. We just love what you're doing for us. Thank you very much for being here for us, Keith.
Oh, I'm loving every minute of it. Can you see me?
Yes.
We got it, buddy.
Oh, hey, Jim.
What'd you do?
All right, let's walk this way. We're going to walk to my golf room for a very quick little run through. I'm not going to go through a bunch of stuff. Then we'll end up back at the table, and I'll share my little story to end it with. How's that?
Perfect.
Ready? Okay. Well, this is the entrance to my golf room. Most people are familiar with these albums. There's one that I had Arnie sign for me. There's that one. And here's one that a lot of people haven't seen before down here. Arnold Palmer, Music for Swinging Golfers, which is very interesting. I thought that was very interesting. This is, of course, the head cover, of course. And that's from his service, memorial service. Just wanted to give a quick run through. If you'll start over there, Bill,
all right, got it.
And just kind of, just show just some of the things on the wall. Let me tell you. Okay. Here's a great picture of Arnold Palmer and Bob Hope. And, over here, this picture here in the corner, I used to love to go down to Augusta every year and take pictures and on the practice rounds and then come back and get them blown up. That's one of my favorite little pictures that I took and had Mr. Palmer sign it for me years later. I do want to show you this piece down here. Not this. This is the golf publication, but this is a little display case that I put together. And the reason why this means a great deal to me is because of this yardage book right here. And it's from 2004. And back in the days when we had 35 millimeter film, I would always spend the entire day from 3 a.m. when I first parked my car and travel the entire golf course, following Mr. Palmer around everywhere. But I would always end my day over at the par 3 course, taking pictures during sunset. And on this particular day, I was changing a roll of film. I'd walked up the hill from the par 3 course, and in my back pocket was this yardage book. And it happened to be a Tuesday about 6:15 at night. And I was changing film in my 35 millimeter camera, and I heard a golf cart, and I looked up, and there's a golf cart coming right towards me with a gentleman in a green coat, 2 gentlemen in green coats, one of which was Mr. Palmer. They stopped. Arnie got out of the cart and said, "What are you still doing here?" And I said, "Mr. Palmer," and I shook his hand. I reached in my back pocket. He signed this for me, and they got back in the car and drove off. And of course, that ended my day for a perfect Tuesday for that day. A few other little things over here. As I mentioned, that I used to love to take up here. Used to love to take pictures. There's a great picture that decent picture I took of the part of number 16 at Augusta, and Arnie's caddy came down and put his bag down, and of course, a year later, I had it blown up, and when I saw Mr. Palmer again at Piper Glen, I had him sign it for me. And one of the things that I loved when he saw that picture, he said, "That's a great shot." And of course, the next day I drove back out to Piper Glen and gave him a copy of it like he needed one. But anyway, and of course, there's the famous picture, of course, that I had him sign for me actually at Piper Glen in Charlotte. Over here, there's great open flag, and you can see my little tapestry. I like it dark in my golf room, so I found this old tapestry of my favorite person in the world. So that's just a little bit of the golf room. There's a little bit more, but there's too much. So, and there's a great little sign there. You thank Bob Muir for that. Thanks, Bob.
That's huge.
Yeah. So we'll come back in here in the living room. Now, and Vern, I appreciate it. This has been a joy for me, and I would like to end on one note. Let me show this picture here, Burl. I just mentioned going out to Piper Glen, TPC Piper Glen in Charlotte, an Arnold Palmer designed golf course. And I used to meet him out there for years and followed just him around. And it happened to be the last year that he was going to play in the tournament. And I met him out there that morning and had my picture taken with him. Him and Doc Giffen pulled in the parking lot. Arnie signed a couple items for me. I never bombarded him, but I always gave him a few things. Always used to paint him a hand-painted card. He always enjoyed that. And had my picture taken with him. I was thrilled. And, the next day I went back to Ecker's Drug and had it blown up and had it blown up into this picture. He signed it for me. And then he went off to play his last round at Piper Glen. That's where this hat, if I can show this again, that's where this hat comes in, Vern. If you can see me wearing this hat, that was in the morning. Well, I was still wearing that hat the final day. And Arnie was playing the last day. He wasn't playing very well. It was about 90 degrees. And I knew he wasn't playing that well, but who cares? I mean, it's Arnold Palmer. So he put it out on 18 at Piper Glen, if I'm not mistaken, for like an 82 or an 83, something like that. And the crowd just was going crazy, clapping. I walked away and walked up the locker room on the steps to the locker room and just stood there. And I had this hat on. And I looked at my watch, and almost 50 minutes later, he finished signing autographs and walked very wearily and tired toward the steps where I was standing at the top by myself. He walked up the steps. His visor was off. He was sunburned. He took one look at me. And I got a little choked up. I stuck my hand out. He reached up on his collar and took his little umbrella pin off, put it in my hand, reached up on my head and kind of roughly took this hat off, took his pin off and signed the bill of this cap. I didn't ask him to. That's just the kind of person he was, and put it back on my head. And I told him I loved him. He went inside the clubhouse, didn't speak. And I just went down the steps, went back to my car and started crying. Well, in my opinion, that's the kind of man he was. In my opinion, that's the kind of man he will always be. I've got nothing but fond memories of this man. So I look forward to being at Latrobe again. It's been a long time. Look forward to being up there and seeing everyone. So, Bern, I really appreciate this. This has been an honor, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
Keith, the honor and the pleasure has been ours. Thank you so much for sharing both your collectibles and your passion for the life and times and career of Arnold Palmer. I mean, it's just fascinating. I look forward to seeing what you'll bring and what stories you will tell as we record for the legacy of Arnold Palmer. So everybody should be thinking about that. We have a little bit of time left, if it's okay. If a few more people, let's say 5, if people have a collectible or a story that they would like to tell, we have the time to do it.
Bern, this is Bob Geddes. I finally got back home, and I'd like to share one item with the group. And Keith, really, I had a chance to hear all the things you were talking about and see most of them. So as Bern said, fascinating and a real lifelong love of Mr. Palmer. I think many of the people on the call feel the same way. This is something that back in 2008 on June 3rd was the day that the USGA opened up the wing at Far Hills or Liberty Corner. And I got the card. And then as I think Eric said earlier, I was able to send it away to Mr. Palmer to have him sign it. But I know there were several people from our society there that day. So I'm going to bring that with me to Pittsburgh. And it has a little note at the top where it says, "Were you there that day?" And whoever was there, I'd like to have him sign it. So hopefully I'll get some signatures.
Hey, Bern, this is John again. Can you hear me?
Thank you, John. Go ahead.
Keith was mentioning about that memorabilia book that Arnie put out. He has that original. A few years back, one of my nephews found this somewhere, and I think this is the book Keith, if you can look at see.
Yep, that's the one.
I thought that was it. I was so fortunate over the years to know Arnie, and I'm going to show you what he did for me here on this book. You ready?
Yep.
Could you see that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
He was incredible way he would autograph things. And I want to show you guys something maybe no one has seen this much, but Gary Thomas did the bust for the Hall of Fame for football. And he did this original of Arnold Palmer. And I like the way a lot of things you have are signed to you from Arnie. And probably collectors think they're not quite as valuable as if it's just signed by the person. I really like it when it's personalized. And I'm going to show you this picture. This was done by Gary Thomas, who does the bust for the Hall of Fame. And this was an original. Let's see if you guys can see it. I'm not good with these cameras.
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Oh, wonderful.
That's an actual charcoal. The original, I made 15 copies and gave the special people. He signed all the copies. They're black and white. But when Winnie Palmer called me and said, John, Arnie wants to give this back to you because it came from Dante Lavelli. And he says, you want it just signed or personalized to you? And I says, please personalize it to me. So just, again, a memory.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful.
So, John, you bring up a point. Keith said it several times. I had Mr. Palmer, I had him sign it. And the humility of the man, the patience of the man is part of the story. As I mentioned earlier, his dad was the groundskeeper. And, it was still in the day that the members were separate from the staff. The golf professionals, the course superintendents, all these folks were non-members, and there was a social stratus distinction between them. And one of the key historic features that I appreciate about Arnold Palmer is that he more or less leveled that playing field. He said, and I never heard him say it or heard him talk about it, but by his actions, he spent time with us unselfishly, willingly, and just went to his office every day to give of himself. And that's what he did up until the time that he went into the hospital. So we all have so many memories that we have been fortunate to share. And I look forward to seeing all of you and collecting more of those stories so that we can continue the honor the legacy of Arnold Palmer, Winnie Palmer, the Palmer family, and help out the foundation, the Palmer Foundation, to cement that legacy.
Sounds great.
Very good. Well, I think we've come to the end of the evening. It's been a really fun hour. Went really fast as far as I'm concerned. I can't wait to get there and be on site. I can tell you that I've been there a few times, both in the golf course and in the clubhouse, as well as in the offices. And I won't say any more. I think if you have the opportunity to wander through the clubhouse, you'll get a very important flavor of what I mean. It's worth coming for, and you'll enjoy the experience. There's no question in my mind. So if anybody has a final story they'd like to tell, we'll entertain it. I'll give it a minute before I close this down.
I got a cute story. I don't know if you could hear me.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Hi, guys. How is everybody?
Good.
Yeah.
I'll try and make this quick. It was a funny story. Very dear friend of mine, member at Ridgewood Country Club. And he, of course, at the time, they don't really do it anymore. The members got special tickets to get into the tournaments. So this was for the 62nd Senior PGA Championship. Anyway, long story short, he's in the tournament, and he gives me a ticket to get in. So I go in at a different gate, and he calls me on my phone, and he says, when you get a chance, he said, give me the ticket. He said, I want to let somebody else into the tournament. So I said, I can't. He said, why not? I said, Arnold Palmer just signed it for me. He said, get the hell out of here. I said, no, I swear to God, Arnold Palmer just signed. Now, the truth of the story is he did not sign it for me. I was just teasing him. But here's the kicker. So I walk over to the clubhouse, and that's right around the clubhouse is where the driving range was. As I walk down, Arnold Palmer is walking towards me. I said, I got to get him to sign something. I go in my pocket, and there's the ticket. Here's the ticket.
Oh,
Wow.
There's the ticket. Can you see it?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So he winds up signing the ticket that I lied about.
That sounds like you, Scott.
Long story short, my friend never got his ticket back.
Wow.
I love it. That's
Wonderful.
great.
That's funny.
That's a good story.
On the count of three, I think we all ought to say goodnight, and we love you, Arnold Palmer.
We do
sir.
love it. Hey, one little thing.
Arnold Palmer.
Hey, Burn, 16 Arnie Amigos are playing Latrobe Country Club tomorrow, so we'll be over there in that hollowed ground tomorrow.
Have a wonderful time, John. Thanks for
Thank
everything
you.
you do for us.
Thank you,
care,
Keith.
all.
Thank you all.
John. Appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Keith. It was great.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you, Scott.
Same here.